Welcome to the Starter Girlz podcast, the show dedicated to the Starter Girl. She's an achiever, she's a creator, she's a magic maker, she's a dreamer, and she is doing all the things. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz podcast. Wherever you are tuning in, we are so thrilled to have you here today. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding. So excited about my guest today. This episode is going to be so awesome. We are diving in deep into the world of marriage and relationships. It's no secret that navigating these waters can be challenging, especially when faced with echoes of our upbringing or the hurdles that life throws our way. My guest today knows this all too well. After experiencing her parents' divorce as a pivotal moment, she developed a keen interest in marriage and family dynamics. This interest later became a lifeline when she encountered turbulence in her marriage. Despite her extensive knowledge gathered from books, seminars, gurus, she sought solutions that just these solutions seemed out of reach. And so Christy Cerniglia is a vibrant speaker. She's a relationship coach, and she says she is, I love this, a ridiculously happy wife after 30 years of marriage. And so, Christy, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jennifer. I'm happy to be here too.
This is going to be fun, and I love your energy and your smile and all the good stuff. And I can tell you're just you're kind of exuding that happiness. I love it. I love being around people that have that warm, I call it warm, fuzzy energy.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm glad.
Great.
I'm glad.
You know, it's so funny. I don't know about you, but the reason I talk about energy, because I pick up on people's energy, and it's sometimes it's a really good gift because it will allow me to kind of steer clear of things I don't probably need to be invested in. But it's also a curse too, because it's also like I wear people's energy. I can feel it, And so I've always told people, like I can walk into a room and I can meet somebody and I will know instantly. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I really like this person. Their energy, there's something about them that I just really like. And on the same token, I can meet somebody and go, I'm not sure. There's something about this person that's off and I don't know what it is yet, but I ain't liking it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't happen often, but it can. So I'm saying I really like you. I like your energy and I can just tell, I read your stuff. This is the first time we've gotten to meet for our audience and they don't know this, but most of the people that I bring on my show, I always do a pre-interview call because I always say if I've gotten to that place, I probably already like you, but I just want to meet you. But I'd already looked at your stuff and I was like, I kind of like this girl. I don't even think we need to do this. I'm just going to get her on the show.
Nice. I'm so glad. Well, I'm glad that my website or my social media, whatever it was, that spoke that clearly to you, because that's the point, is that it's supposed to represent me well. So I'm glad. I hope it did.
Oh, yeah. We want it to be a representation of who we are. I think it's the authenticity that we look for in people, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about you. I want to kind of talk about what led to all of this for you, because this is something that you're passionate about. And I think when we're passionate about things, we speak truth into that, And so, and I think it's a gift when we are excited about the things that we get to do. So I'd really, for our audience, would love to know, kind of, I mentioned some of this, but from your perspective, how this all came about for you.
Well, you mentioned my parents. I had a very happy upbringing. And in fact, my parents had folks used to tease us that we were like the Beaver Cleaver family from the old show Leave It to Beaver. So it was a very happy upbringing. My dad worked. My mom stayed home. It's very traditional. My mom, we laugh and say we didn't know what Oreos were because my mom made everything homemade. And so it was just a good, wholesome upbringing. And then suddenly, my senior year of high school, there's divorce out of what seemed like the clear blue sky. And so my father had gotten involved with another woman and he left our family to go and be with her. And it was so far out of left field. And it was so discouraging, disenchanting to find that this person you thought you knew and you thought he was this, no. And so everything just kind of blew up. And so I was real clear after that happened that I was never going to get married, because why would you do that? Why would you get married and have children only 20 some years later to have them leave you? And so I wasn't raised in a Christian home, but I was raised in a moral home. And so, but I gave up on the idea of marriage. And so I decided to go after what the world said was success. I said, I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to get a great job. I'm going to make lots of money. And I don't know after that, but I'm never going to depend on a man to make the money and take care of me because my mom was in a really tough spot. She did not know how to get us a place to live, how to take care of the bills, how to take care of everything. My father had always done that. And so I watched that and it sent a message to me and it made me very, very fearful. Um, Fast forward, 4 or 5 years, and I meet my husband and I decide I am going to get married, but still holding that stuff back. And like, I'm going to make sure I can take care of myself. Right. So I've got my degree and I've got my good job and that sort of thing. And so I was very guarded in the beginning. Um, but I did meet the Lord Jesus Christ about 4 years into our marriage and was saved and completely transformed my way of thinking about marriage and family and the whole bit. And I was determined that we were going to have a happy, thriving marriage. We weren't just going to stay married, but we were going to be happy. So we did lots of weekends away and I read lots of books and even counseling at different points. But there came a time about 3 or 4 years ago when it felt like some of the rocky places that we had sort of swept under the rug because we hadn't found a resolution for them had become sort of really big bumps in under the rug that couldn't be ignored anymore. And I wasn't finding the resources to help.
Mm.
So I did some looking around online and I think I ultimately found the book on Facebook, but it's called The Empowered Wife. And the author is Laura Doyle. It's a New York Times bestselling book.
Okay.
And I started reading it. And she was reading my mail. I'll just tell you that.
It
It was
landed.
it was completely different than anything else I had ever seen and really practical, which is what I like. Like, tell me what to do. Tell me
Yeah.
what I'm doing wrong, right? And it addressed things that I had never seen addressed before, you know? So one of the common themes that you get in a lot of marriage books and conferences and everything is communication, communication, communication. Well, my degree was in communication. And I
Mm.
love to talk. My nickname growing up was Chatty Cathy. So there's no problem there. I thought I've got this communication thing down. But what I found out from the book was that I needed to communicate actually a little bit less than I
Mm.
was. I was saying way
Interesting.
too much. I was overloading the communication and saying things that
Okay.
didn't need to be said. So there's a lot of counterintuitive things in these skills that I teach.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting because we talk a lot about communication, but I will say this, and I'll reference talk about my husband and I because my husband's a minimal communicator, but it's funny because I'm probably an over communicator. That's my thing. I communicate a lot. But here's what's interesting. I'm a bottom line thinker. So when people give me too much information, sometimes I just freeze and I shut down. I just tell me the facts, the three main things, which is so funny. And then my husband needs more details. And so even though he's the least communicative, I'm the communicator. It's so funny how we receive information when it comes
Yeah.
in. So that's what's making me kind of thinking about that. Sometimes like you could be over communicating with somebody if they're like a bottom line person and you're just giving way too much communication. I mean, I don't know. I'm
Mm,
not diminishing what you're saying, but I'm just saying in business, I'm thinking about that
yeah.
because sometimes we do communicate too much information to people.
Yeah, it's different. Well, I read the book and I said, I'm going to put these principles into action. And I began to do that. And I started to see a different response from my husband immediately. Um, but after a few months, I felt like I had exhausted all that I could do on my own as far as
Mm.
working with the information in the book. And I really needed more help to get to those deeper places. And so I found out there was coaching available.
Ah,
So I hired a coach And it was probably more money than I've ever spent on myself. But I tell you what, my husband and I both look back now and say that was the best investment we ever made. And I worked with her. And as soon as I had my first phone call with her, I said, oh, that's what I want to do. That is what I want to do. I want to coach women. I want to help them create these lifelong, really thriving marriages, you know? And so as soon as she really helped me to see my blind spots, to see the places where I wasn't showing up the way I wanted to, she showed me how I was showing up in disrespectful ways that I did not know, that I was not aware of, and
Mm.
the things that I was doing that were actually pushing my husband away. And she taught me how to reverse those things so that we could connect again and renew that intimacy again. And so I learned all of that. And it was just mind blowing how simple, and yet they're habits, right? They're habits that I had to practice over and over and over again over a period of time so that they could become second nature for me. But then I went through my own coach training, and now I'm able to pass those things on to others because I've seen so much success in my own relationship, in the ladies I went through coach training with, and now in my own clients. And it is the most rewarding work I've ever done, really.
Wow. I think it's a tough subject for a lot of people. I mean, when you think about relationships and the divorce rate, and and people get stuck, and you're talking about these patterns, and I think we're all victim of this. Really, I'll say we all have these patterns of behavior that we don't even realize. Sometimes they sort of become part of the dynamic in the relationship, right? We do it with our kids, we do it, we had it in our house when we were growing up. It's how they see us, how we respond, and we get wedged sort of into them, and they just sort of become part of who we are. And so, in listening to you, and I know that these are things I talk about in business when I'm coaching women, and I don't get into that stuff. These are the people that I got to send to you guys when we get to the marriage stuff.
Yeah.
But I do talk about business patterns of behavior because we have cycles and we do the same thing over and over and over. And the only time we really start to make changes is when we get sick of it. And I love you talking about this because I think similarly, I don't know that I've done some things with marriage stuff, but I think in my own personal journey to heal myself, I did some of these things you're talking about too, where I started to find ways to, I didn't like the way I was showing up or the way things were going on in my life personally, the things I was dealing with. And so I started investigating, and things would fall short, and then I'd go find more things. And then I landed something. The right people showed up at the right time, and this is what I needed, right? But I think it's all these little pieces that you've brought together too, all of these things you've done that have really been kind of cemented each of your journey as you've gone along. So I think what you're doing, I sum all this up to say, I think what you're doing is a much needed thing. And it's a good thing. And I think that you speak also some truth in when you talk about the in the beginning, the guardedness, and I could resonate with some of that, not because my parents went through that, but I have some of that just because of things I witnessed as a child. And I think we do get guarded. And so you went out and found success. And I think we do that a lot of times because we believe we have to prove ourselves, or it's kind of our out, like our escapism, right? We'll throw ourselves into the work or into this. And then we grow up and realize, well, that's not really making us all that happy and fulfilled, you know?
Right. Right. A lot of the things I learned through this process is that the things about me, the qualities that I have that made me successful in the workplace, and even as a parent, as a mom, and as a homeschooling mom, were not the same skills I needed to be successful
Mm,
in my marriage with my husband. So
yeah.
when I showed up like a manager, like a teacher, like a mother to my husband, that
Yeah,
doesn't
not so
work.
good.
That
Right.
doesn't, no,
Right.
he's not attracted to his mother. So
Right.
I don't want
Right.
to act like that, right? I have to change my hat, and I have to show up softer and more feminine and more and less bossy. Let's just say it, right? I had four kids at home that I was homeschooling, and my husband would walk in the door and I would just lump him right in within. Okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. I
Right.
was delegating, making things happen, running this household, right? That was not a romantic situation that
Right.
I was creating in my household. So I had to stop that, and I had to recognize that my relationship with him was different. It wasn't a manager employee, it wasn't a mother child, it wasn't any of that. It was lovers, and I wanted him to make bedroom eyes at me. I didn't want him to obey me and,
Yeah,
take
sure.
orders from me. And so I just had to switch that. And I think that's hard today because
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you.
This is my time.
Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership.
Away and the game's on the line. There ain't no
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
never settled on play. Putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day. Foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid all my dues, waited in line. 8, 7.
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/Jennifer Loehding. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Ready to shine. Brighter than all of the
women are wearing a lot of different hats and having to lead a lot of different people, whether it's kids or whether it's grown-ups in the workplace, and just to switch off and not not try to use the same set of skills and strengths at home with hubby.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you talked about something really good there. I had a gal on the show. She's been on here a couple times. Her name is Roya Maslover. She was she's a Mary Kay, because I was a Mary Kay for 22 years. She's like at the top, and I love her. She's just great energy. But she talked about this whole feminine and masculine energy. And as women achievers, and I'm touching upon this because you said wearing the many hats. And I think those of us that are achievers, we have fallen into that. I was almost like wanting to give you grace because I was like, girl, I get it. You're like managing, you're putting kids here, you're doing this. You're in your mother role. Like you are the maker and the shaker. And it is hard to
Yes.
move from that into this other space, especially when you're tired and you're exhausted from doing all that.
Yes.
But she talked a lot about this whole feminine and masculine energy, how as women, we show up with a lot of masculine energy. And it was really, she talked about how these men even respond to this behavior, when they're showing up. And if we're coming on and you don't need them and you're giving this, I got it, and we're used to doing that because we have to be, and so there is a lot, I think, to this whole making that shift. Man, I'm going to tell you, it is hard to go from you're in this task mode and wearing all the hats and then having to come over here and be a completely different, a different type of person.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the things I love about the skills that I teach is that we give some real simple cheat phrases and things to say that help you get into that mode and help you to start viewing your husband again as the smart, capable hunk that you married, right? Because
Yeah.
not only do we wear a lot of hats, but we get buried under a lot of responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And we're taking care of the house and we're taking care of the work and we're taking care of the husband and the kids and all of the things. And we forget about ourselves.
Right.
And so one of the first things I talk to my clients about is, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you making yourself happy so that you show up happy? It's not his responsibility to make you happy. It's your responsibility to make you happy. And then he can pile on. He can add to that happiness, but don't leave him with the whole job. So does that mean you need to go for a walk today? Do you need to listen to a podcast? Do you need to take a hot bath? Do you need to have coffee with a girlfriend? What is it that you enjoy? Make sure you do that, whether it takes 5 minutes or an hour, whatever you have time for that day, so that you show up happy for your husband, for your family, for whoever you're showing up for. Because these aren't just skills for wives. These are skills for relationships, right? So I've seen a great transformation in my marriage, but I've also seen wonderful changes in my relationship with my mom and with my grown kids and with my brother. These skills work with everybody. But when I show up happy, guess what? Everybody likes me better.
Happy. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If mama
What's
ain't
that saying?
happy,
They say when mom's
nobody's
happy,
happy.
everybody's happy.
We have a lot of influence in this
Yeah.
life, and we have a lot of influence in our home, and we need to take responsibility for that and recognize that that's a real privilege for us. Because if I want things to change at my house and in my marriage, I have the power to do that. Isn't that beautiful? I don't have to wait for my husband to change, for our relationship to change, because when I begin to make these changes, he responds differently. He doesn't even have to read a book. He just
Yeah.
responds to me differently.
Yeah.
It's
This is
beautiful.
good. Yeah, Chrissy, this is good because I think it's really you're talking about taking ownership for what you want, and I think one of the things I mentioned to you before we got on here, I spoke to another gal that's kind of in the same different teaching, but kind of in the similar field, and we were talking about you know speaking for what you want, because so often I think that we do this even outside of marriage. I'm talking about all relationships. We start assuming things about the other person without really knowing what they're thinking, but also not communicating what we want either. And so we leave this vague, fuzzy area of them to try to figure out the mystery of how should we be acting right now, right? And we set them up for failure. So I think you're saying all these things that I think speak some truth, but I really also love that you're talking about taking the ownership of that and saying that I have to make sure that I show up appropriately. When we're happy, we see things very differently than when we're not. When we're miserable,
So
everything's
true.
miserable, you know? And
So
so
true.
it's so important. I mean, I talk about it even the work that I do. It's like one of the things when I listen to people, I can just listen to them talk, and it's almost like the resonating message the question that comes up is, what have you done for yourself this week? You know what I mean? Like I can just listen to it. And I'm like, what are you doing? What have you done for yourself this week? Because all these things that
Yes.
you're like nitpicking and complaining about
Yes.
would probably they're there, but you
Yes.
probably wouldn't be so honed in on all of them if you were coming from a happier place.
Yes. But see, women, and I don't know if you come into contact with this or not, but so many of the women I talk to feel guilty. They
Yes.
think that self-care is selfish.
Yes.
But I'm saying to you is, would your husband rather you be selfish and take a half hour to have a hot bath and show up happy? Yes, he would. I
Yeah.
promise you, every single day. And your kids would too.
Yeah.
It's not selfish. It's like putting your oxygen mask on first so
Mhm.
that you can help other people. You can't help anybody if you've, croaked. You got to get in there and take care of you. Yeah. I say all the time, miserable people do not have happy relationships.
Yeah.
Happy people do. So get yourself happy. I promise your husband will be thrilled to have you happy, and then he'll want to pile on.
I agree
Yeah.
with you on this. I think everything is better when you work on yourself. And I do. And I agree with you. I think that's one of the things we talk about a lot with women. If you help them kind of iron, a lot of times I'm talking about scheduling. We'll go through their schedule and I'm looking at things to find, holes, gaps in there. And they're like, well, I don't really have time for these things. And I always come back with, you really can't afford not to. I mean, you really need to, because it's for the good of everybody when you show up. But I think in this world we live in, we're taught, to be selfless. Women, especially, and depending on generations, I think we are taught to be selfless. I think these kids now are not maybe taught. We're brought up in that same generation where we were taught to kind of be quiet, sit back, be selfish, and all of that. And so I think we get those mindsets that if we do anything for ourselves, then we are. And I'm here to say, no, you need to. I'm with you on this, Christy, because to me, there are certain things that I go do. My gym time every morning, like I work out every single day of the week. That is my time. I'm up at 5. I tell people this. I'm up at 5 every single day, even on the weekends. A lot of times I still wake up because I'm conditioned. I guard my morning times, and I hate having to be anywhere really before 10 a.m. I'm serious. And it's not because I'm lazy, but I have a whole morning routine that is mine, and I value it. And I'm kind of not happy when it gets interrupted. It will mess my day up for real.
That's so good. I heard you say when women get kind of crabby and cranky and things like that. See, I used to get that way, and I just thought, well, I guess I'm in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And I just let it go. But now I know what to do about it. Number one, like you said, how's my self-care? What have I done? Can I go do something real quick to turn this around? And the other question I ask myself is, what am I focused on? Because what I focus on is going to increase. Right. So am I focused on all the things that my husband, my partner, my kids, whatever, are doing wrong or not doing? Or am I focused on all the things they're doing well that I'm happy about? So I might just stop and do a gratitude list and write down 10 things I'm thankful for about my man or about my kids, whoever's on my nerves, right? Because if I start looking for too long at the negative, I'm going to go there in my mood. So I need to focus on what I want more of and then talk about it. Thank you so much for loading the dishwasher this morning before you left. Thank you so much. And the smallest things. Thank you so much for going to work every day. I really appreciate that. My life would be a lot different if you didn't. You know, even if I go to work every day, it doesn't take away from the fact that I can recognize and be grateful for what he's done.
Yeah. Gratitude is an important thing. You know, it's one of the things when I started going through kind of I don't have to say it's a sabbatical because I didn't take out work, but I kind of call it that because I spent a lot of time going through stuff. And as we know, personal development's an ongoing thing, but I had a couple years there where I was just really nose deep into this. And gratitude was one of the things that I really had to work on because I was not one of those people that I was probably more skeptical about things and more cynical about things. And I joke about this now. I wrote a book and I talk about it in the book, you know, how in the beginning that gratitude journal was so bad. I mean, I would write things like, I'm grateful for toilet paper. I'm grateful for forks. I mean, I really had to dig to find things I was grateful for. But I can tell you, Christy, that became a really big thing. That, and there was another thing that I did and people laugh about this, on the top of my spiral. I still every day write a to-do list. I have a Rocket notebook now, so I don't waste paper. I can erase it, but I'm a big believer in doing some kind of a to-do list. And I like writing things out. For me, it's just, I like to be able to cross them off. But at the top of that every day, you know, gratitude was on my list of to-dos. I would have read, gratitude with my exercise, all of that. But on the very top, I would write things like, you're amazing. Today's going to be a great day. And I would do this every single day on the top of that paper. And so those things, it really became like true to what you're saying was what I was focusing on. So in those times where I was finding it really hard to be grateful about things, I don't have trouble with that so much anymore. I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm perfect. There are times I'm mad, but for the most part, I can look at things and find something good in most things that are going on. I've trained myself to do that. That gratitude journal was huge. It was a huge shift for me. And so I believe it. I think it's a great thing to do in your life, period. Whether you're in a relationship you're trying to deal with, whatever, in everything you do.
I love what you just said. I trained myself to do that. I trained myself to look for the good in a situation. And that's what the gratitude journal did for you. See, I have a piece of paper that hangs on my bathroom wall that I write down my wins for the day. And anything can be a win. I get to decide, right?
Right.
So as soon as I walk in my bathroom, the first thing that I think of is, what's something good that happened today that I can write down? Man, when you start to train your mind to think that way, what's something good? Because I think our minds are pre-programmed to think, what's going wrong?
Yeah.
You know?
And
so we just have to flip that.
Safety mechanism.
It changes everything when we flip that. And I don't know about you, but I found when I started to show more gratitude and share more gratitude with the people around me, that they started to show me more too.
Yeah.
It just creates that atmosphere. People started thanking me for doing the laundry and cooking dinner, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to start with you. And you made a really good point in all of this is that, if you're looking for somebody else to make you happy, that's not going to happen. It has to start with you first, and you have to make a change. And sometimes it can be hard because I'm sure you're seeing this even working with your clients. You don't get the immediate response right away. You have to do the work. But I think, when I think about people listening to this show, these are leaders, these are women, they're already doing hard things every single day, right? What is this one? If the relationship is worth it to you, then you do the hard things, right?
Yes. And I just encourage women to experiment, right? You can always go back to the way you've been doing things, but you're not liking your outcome. So let's just try out something new and see what happens, right? And then, you can always go back, but we can experiment with a few things.
I love it. So for you, when you have people come to you, do you have a certain like a niche of women that come to you? Are you finding that you're just getting kind of all different walks of life?
Yeah, I think it's natural to attract people like me. So
Yeah.
I'm in my 50s. I'm approaching empty nest.
Yeah.
I think it's a time when we do start to look at our marriage and say, how are things? How is this going to
Nice.
be when the kids all leave and go on to college? Um, so I think I get a lot of that, but I get women from the whole spectrum, from in crisis where their
Mm,
husband has actually left to
okay.
go and pursue another woman, but they
Wow.
still want to stand for their marriage, all the way across to these folks over here who are generally happy, but they really know that it can be better, and
Yeah.
they want help to make it better. And I love that, because the skills that I teach can work in any of these situations.
Right.
And whether our goal is for the relationship to come together and be lifelong and prosperous, right? But even if it doesn't, I feel that the women are left stronger and better to face the future either
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I think anytime you're helping somebody work on them, I think you're never going to lose in whatever it is. So like I always tell people when they, people will go through things and they'll be like, well, that was bad and I didn't get anything from it. And I don't believe that. I think there's always something to be gained from the experiences that you go through, whether it was something huge or not. You still learned. You learned something within that framework that took you to the next place. And you probably your learning may be that I need more, you know? And so I think that's great. And I'm where you are. I'm in my 50s and I'm last kid at home. I got a 19-year-old. So I get that when you were talking about that next phase, where you're kind of looking at things because you're sort of, especially if a lot of the things you've done, I'm listening, your story, and we're kind of similar in a lot of things because I did homeschool my kids for a short period of time. I was a mom, stay-at-home mom, which is not something I grew up with. I did not have a stay-at-home mom. And it was something that when my husband and I got together, we chose to do that. And I'm very grateful that I have had the opportunity. My oldest is 28 this year, that I've been with my kids the whole time, that I had that luxury to work from home and be able to be with them and do all those great things. But I do think you get to that midpoint, kind of, that midlife, and you go, things are different. You're not in the parent mode as much as you were for the long time that you were in it, right? Now you're in
Yes.
this, they're adults now, you can back up a little bit. But interestingly, I don't know if you're experiencing this. I'm kind of now where we don't have these busy weekends, and I'm like kind of loving it. Like no soccer, no karate, no lacrosse, no this, no that. And for a while there, I was sort of missing it. And now I'm kind of like, man, I'm kind of loving where I'm at right now. I'm back like up 20 again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it is. It's a treat. Well, we're into the grandparenting now. So
How fun.
I just had a new granddaughter born yesterday,
Oh,
actually.
wow. Congratulations.
So
How fun.
yeah. So I've got, it feels like the best of all the worlds,
Yeah.
because I get to still experience those little snuggles and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it keeps getting better, I feel like. And so, if there are women out there listening who are not feeling that spark and that connection and that intimacy that they had with their spouse in the good old days,
Yeah.
I would love for them to reach out to me, because I feel like we can turn back the hands of time. The things that attracted us to our men are still there. They've just gotten buried. They've gotten covered up a little bit by the responsibilities of life, the same way it has in us, right?
Yes.
The girl who was so much fun and bouncing off the walls in the good old days, she got crunched underneath some responsibility too. But as I bring her back out, my husband starts showing up more and more like he used to. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that hunk.
So
And
great.
things come back together. So I would love to help them, bring that back, put that back
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah, no, this has been great, Christy. I appreciate all your time and your wisdom. And like I said in the beginning, I think you've got great energy. I think that you're passionate about what you're doing. I think that makes the difference, because I think, again, when we're excited about, and we kind of have our own testimonies that we go through and we can speak some truth into other people. That's what they want. They want the authenticity. They want to know you've been in the walk and you can say, hey, here's what's worked for me. Let me show you how
Yeah.
you can utilize it to help you.
Yeah.
So
And if I can do it, honey, anybody can, because I'm as hard headed and rebellious, tell me to do one thing, I do the other. I mean, I'm not an easy case. I'm a complicated order.
I always tell people that about me. Humans are complex. Just some of us are a little more complex, especially if you're
That's
stubborn.
right.
I always blame it on my German roots because I had a full-blooded German grandmother, and I always say, us Germans, we are just a lot to deal with at times. So, Christy, you are
That's
awesome. I
That's
appreciate you, appreciate your wisdom. And again, for our audience, go check her out. If you're in that place, I'd say check you out anyways. But if you're in a place where you feel like you need some guidance, look up with Christy. And so, Christy, where do you want us to send them? Where's your website that you would like us to direct them
go to the website. It's called relationshipswithamap.org. And you can sign up for a free PDF that'll tell you the 5 mistakes you're making when you're trying to get your man's attention and affection.
Oh, cool. I'm going to go check it out myself. Fun stuff. I like it. I'm going to go check it out. So, yes, thank you, Christy. You are awesome. And of course, to our audience, we appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And head on over to Apple. You can give us a review there. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube so we can keep sharing all this fabulous content and getting these amazing women on here. And as I always say, you guys be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.